Welcome back, everybody. I'll note we have an apology from Councillor Wehapi. We are doing Welcome and Communities Program, Engagement Approach and Plan. So Pete and Cecilia, come forward. I'm assuming, would you like questions at the end or going through? At the end? Okay, not a problem. I will hand over to you. And remember, we are live.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Sisi tōku ingoa. Thanks very much for having me today to take you through the engagement approach for developing the welcoming plan and having this opportunity to seek your input into this process as well. Just a quick rundown on what we will be covering today. We'll start with a quick recap on the program while we are developing the welcoming plan and what's the purpose of it, and a quick snapshot on looking at what's the makeup of our community from the latest census, and looking at where we're at in terms of the engagement approach, sharing with you some of the case studies or what other councils are doing, and of course using the opportunity to have your input into this process. So to start with, a quick recap on this program. Welcoming Communities program is initiated led by Immigration New Zealand in partnership with Ministry for Ethnic Communities and Human Rights Commission. And the purpose of this program is to create a welcoming and inclusive community for everyone that who choose to study, work, and live in Porirua. Porirua City Council has signed the agreement with Immigration New Zealand in January 2023, and following that, we received a 3-year seed funding to allow us to carry out this program. Currently, there are 35 councils and 5 local boards participating in this program. Not all the councils have chosen to participate as a voluntarily program, and we're all at different stages. And one of the non-negotiables in the agreement that we have signed with Immigration New Zealand is to develop and implement a welcoming plan. So it's really clear that that's our obligation to carry out this work and to develop this plan and implement it. And I will talk a little bit more about our approach in developing the plan, but also just to show you, the Porirua is diverse, and from the census we have currently 11.5% of our population as Asian. That's a significant increase from 2018 census. And we also have increase in Mila population as well. And it's forecasted that we will reach 89,000 in 2052. So that's going to be a significant increase. And of course, we'll have increase in our refugee and migrant, of course, in our community. And if we look at the first slide here, that's 8 standards framework, which is really core to the program. It's set by Immigration New Zealand, and as the framework that we use to develop our welcoming plan against. And it's also a core framework that we use to conduct our stocktake report, which I will talk a bit more about. And we talk about the importance of developing the welcoming plan because that's our obligation. And how do we develop that? As mentioned, we will use that framework to develop the welcoming plan in partnership with our iwi partner, Ngāti Toa Rangitara, and the Porirua Welcoming Communities Service Network, which serves as a working group but also expertise panel. We will align the needs of our multicultural community and the council's community outcomes through an engagement and consultation process to determine the agreed actions, which I will touch base on that a bit more later. And the purpose of the welcoming plan serves both internally and externally. For internal, we will use the welcoming plan to improve our understanding and identify ways to involve our multicultural community effectively. and also to build cultural capability of our staff in responding the needs of our horticultural community, and to align and weave in our existing resources to support our horticultural community. And externally, we'll collaborate and further partnership with agencies and providers to better support our multicultural community, and also respond to Multicultural Council's request for Porirua City to develop a multicultural strategy through their submission for long-term plan last year. A quick look at the makeup of our community, which I have already touched base earlier in terms of the increase of our Asian population and the MENA population. And we are a community with multiple languages that's spoken, and besides Pacific languages and English and Maori. And this is really just the top languages spoken in our community. And looking at demographic in Porirua, we have, of all the overseas-born residents living in Porirua, there is a large proportion of residents that are 30 to 64 years old, representing a big labor force. In terms of economic contribution, from the latest release from Ministry of Ethnic Communities, Asian and MENA-owned businesses represent more than 20% of all businesses in New Zealand. And locally, Council promotes and undertakes several events that support our businesses and position Porirua as a visitor destination. And some examples include Wellington on a Plate, Choctober Feast, and multiple different markets, including Pacific night markets. And you will see representation from a different diverse background through these events and they support businesses. And also noting that we held our Lunar New Year event and our first ever multicultural play date in Kaitahi early this year, with communities that are coming from different cultural background, that also support our local businesses. And the events went really successfully, and we had really lovely positive feedback from local businesses as well as communities. And looking at employment overview from our Porirua residents, you can see Asian and MENA. Just try to see if that works. Sorry, it doesn't seem to work. So the Asian and the MENA groups have the highest full-time employment rate in Porirua. Please note that that really just means that people living in Porirua, doesn't mean that necessarily working in Porirua. In terms of occupation, you will also see that we have relatively high proportion from overseas-born that working as a professionals and technician and trades. In terms of how we develop our development phase, we have 3 different phases. So phase 1 is really to set scope and set the foundation right. And phase 2 is to engage and develop, and phase 3 is to implement. And we have spent quite a bit of time in phase 1 because scoping and setting the foundation is really important. And these are really just the key outputs and milestones that I've captured here in phase 1. And I would like to share a few highlights with you. For example, the establishment of Porirua Welcoming Community Service Network, which is a network that made up of key agencies, organizations, community groups that work very closely with and for our migrant refugee communities. They're also our sounding panel, and we'll be developing the welcoming plan together alongside with them, as well as Atitua Rangitara. And also another highlight I would like to share with you is the signing ceremony for the statement of commitment that we held in Mayor's office last year, where we had representation of key stakeholders, representing, again, key agencies and communities, as well as senior manager from Immigration New Zealand participating at this very key milestone event, witnessing our commitment to welcoming communities program. And we have Mayor as well as Dr. Taku representing Ngāti Toa signing the agreement. Following that, we have applied for and achieved stage 1 accreditation. Now, there are 4 different stages in this accreditation, and it's voluntarily again, and it's up to individual councils to decide if they would like to participate and go through this accreditation process. There are some benefits associated with being accredited. We could be profiled at national network as well as international network. As welcoming community is an international initiative that we have countries such as Australia, USA, Europe, and Canada participating. We also have financial contribution benefit from immigration from stage 2 onwards. For example, if we go through stage 2, we will receive 9,500 contributing from Immigration New Zealand to help activate actions that are identified in the welcoming plan. Coming to phase 2, which is engage and develop. This is where we are at. So stocktake report mentioned earlier, we have used a framework to develop the stocktake report. It is really important piece, as before we develop the welcoming plan, it's important for us to understand what our strengths are and opportunities are in terms of the program activities, services, and the processes that we have serving our multicultural community, either by council-led or by working with others. And the gap analysis and opportunities are captured in the stocktake report, which serves as a foundation for developing the welcoming plan. And we have shared this stocktake report both internally and externally with our stakeholders and seeking feedback. And of course, it's acknowledged that we do need to have a proper consultation and engagement process to determine what's the agreed action, and both internally and externally. And so with the engagement consultation phase in the phase 2 becomes really important, and we will do that. Would not do that without having the opportunity to seek your input into this process today. So at the engagement, we will do that both internally and externally. And with internal engagement, we will use already established and effective internal method that you will see have used when engaging and developing strategies such as Ola Kamatanga and Mauna Loa. And we will use external stakeholders such as the Porirua Welcoming Community Service Network as a platform to go through the external engagement to seek their feedback into that engagement process. And some examples that I could share with you that we're already finding and aligning with the strategies and finding opportunities to collaborate with other teams on business growth, economic growth as through Pacific Night Market, where we will see that presentation from stakeholders are of multicultural background. And also another example in supporting employment is by engaging the Porirua ethnic youth employment pathway project that led by Ministry of Education, where we participated and facilitated the workplace visit. And we used that opportunity to engage our Porirua youth with ethnic background and seeking their feedback through for the refreshment on children youth framework. So those are the examples where we have already sought and the opportunities to collaborate with other teams in feeding through the strategies. Following that, we will look at having the welcoming plan adopted at the TPK in late July. Phase 3 is implement, where we will be developing an implementation plan and as well as monitoring and evaluation process, and using that process to look at the review of the welcoming plan and see where the gaps are and what need to be updated. What other councils are doing, just a really quick highlight. So Queenstown Lakes District Council, Palmerston North City Council, as well as Hamilton City Council have all adopted and published the welcoming plan at different stages. And most recent one is from Queenstown Lakes District Council that they have adopted the plan last year in September. And all of them have recently achieved at different stages of different accreditation stage. Queenstown Lakes has achieved level 2 following the adoption of the plan, and Palmerston North has achieved a level 3, and Hamilton City Council has achieved a level 2. And it's also worth noting that all of the councils I mentioned here have employed a welcoming communities advisor to carry out program following the cease of the seed funding provided by Immigration New Zealand. And now is the question, seeking your input into this process.
Jeff, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Cecilia, for coming in and presenting. And finally having the opportunity, I know we were scheduled to have this earlier. I'm going to try and answer your questions. The first part of this is, I think in answering I think that the presentation you've given and the way that you've approached this is certainly part of that vision. So I would commend the entire team for working on this mahi. Thank you.
Thank you.
In terms of the key challenges and barriers, and I'm going to be very careful about this because obviously I come from a position that is not part of that community, so it will always be seen as, if I do this right, at best an ally and at worst tone deaf. But I think for me, one of the big challenges is making sure that the decisions that we make as a table are truly reflective of all views of our community, particularly those who don't normally have a voice in these processes. I think that is a big barrier that I think, this may help, but I think that is something that we will need to work on more comprehensively as well. I have a couple of questions. One, in your understanding, has there ever been any efforts made on how to address that issue of voice at decision-making, at the decision-making table? Other jurisdictions overseas have historically used mechanisms, including the concept of aldermen, which is a bloody gendered term anyway, but the point being that they are non-elected representatives of communities of interest where they at least have the opportunity to speak, if not vote, on those decisions. Has there been any models that have been looked at as part of the work that you've been doing so far?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Yes, it is important that we involve those that are not vocal but having an opportunity to still voice out what their concerns are and opportunities are. We don't have a concrete model, but in saying that, we do use the ways that are feeling comfortable to our communities and using the languages that are understood by them. And in response to that, we have signed up to the language assistance program where we do have availability to actually engage interpreters to help with the translations. We also engage with organizations such as Porirua Multicultural Council, who work very closely with our migrant and refugee communities, and they are one of the channels that we have engaged with in seeking voices from those communities that who don't usually vocal and speak up. So there are mechanisms that we have used, and those just some examples.
Excellent. That will answer one of my later questions down the line as well, so thank you. I'm trying to contrast this with the work that the Council has done with regards to engagement strategies with regards to tangata whenua, Māori, and our Pacifica communities. I'm trying to, and although I note that this is part of a program that has been, initialised by central government, can I just get a sense of, should I be concerned that this is seen as not at the same level of mana as those two other defined strategies are? Because I would worry that, again, it would look like we were doing not having a dedicated strategy or not using that language to define it could look like we are not doing our bits to equalise that the importance of those relationships.
I will start with, and perhaps Pete can jump in if I didn't. So it's really just a language. I mean, yes, strategy sounds big. Welcoming plan is what is set by Immigration New Zealand in the agreement. So that's the term that we use. And it's also very clear that there were areas that we need to focus on. I'm just going to bring that back again. The framework, which clearly sets out the pillars that we have to focus on. And some of them probably look very familiar to you in relation to Ola Kamatanga strategy, for example, economic growth. And here in this framework, we talk about economic development, business, and employment. And also similarly, we have here equitable access and culture and identity. And similarly, we have that referenced in Ola Kamatanga strategy as well. So even though this is called a welcoming plan, but it's quite comprehensive in terms of areas that we're looking at.
Thank you for that. Now, central government are contributing a little bit to the pūtea for this project. But if we are looking to implement this, there will be, I expect, an ongoing cost. What is our current positioning around this in terms of budgets?
I'll answer that. We have, they fund a salary for a fixed term. We have no funding post that. We will look to implement this through our business as usual. Funding is a problem for all of these strategies, but our commitment is to do it through the existing funding. So that's what we've committed to. Quite exactly how we will do that is perhaps not entirely clear to us at the moment, but that's what we have committed to.
Thank you for the clarity. Answering your questions again for feedback, I just want to make 2 points here. One, I expect that the tactics of engagement that you use will be bespoke for the communities to work best with in that context. So some tactics won't necessarily be as effective as other contacts, depending on the nature of the specific communities that you want to reach with. So I would like to make sure that that part of the feedback loop is being monitored as well. The last thing I wanted to say was, in answering this, it is, I think, also in the way that we, as decision makers around this table, come into this space. And I know we've had this korero before on similar subjects when we came to our engagement with our Pacifica and our tangata whenua as well, about the nature of this space feeling very Western. With due respect to our monarch over there, and the flags and Te Tiriti, it is still, I think, not necessarily a space that feels like it is truly welcoming as well. So I'm not asking for comment from officers on that, but I'm just pointing out that there's an incongruity with regards to how we put ourselves out there as a decision-making group. I think that's probably about as much feedback as I can give at this time. So I'll say kia ora and thank you for the presentation.
Kia ora, thank you.
Councillor Hayward? Sorry, Councillor Duncan.
Well, it's not fair, Jeff, going first. He asks all the questions and there's not many left for you, actually. But look, I've long been an advocate for the minority groups getting a say. I wonder, do we have some statistics on how involved they get in the voting process with council?
Through the chair, we are working that very closely with our democratic services, and we have ARCO sessions that we have set aside to support our migrant communities to understand the process and provide them with information. And we have already done one session just a few weeks ago at City Hub, where we invited all the communities and also leaders that have the influence to take this information with them and to share with their community members. Yes, it is still an ongoing process.
So if you're asking, though, do we know who has voted in the past, there's no real way of doing that. We can tell Māori who have voted in the Māori ward or Māori electorates, but we can't actually identify by ethnicity who's voting, but we're putting quite a lot of effort into encouraging voting. So that's our kind of proxy for that.
Great, thanks for that. Look, great work. It's a great effort and it's impressive stuff. Thanks very much for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Philo?
Okay, so in answer to your first question, what would our city look like if it was a welcoming community? I think we would see a whole range of people in our, facilities across the community, using the playgrounds, using the pools, using the libraries. They would know, where to go, and they'd be involved in those spaces. So and feel comfortable to be there. So in terms of what the challenges and barriers are, I think possibly it would be, do they know? Do they know what we have? Do they know where it is? Do they know what's available? How do you combat that? I guess that's the next part, the opportunities. I assume you would be having relationships with the community leaders in those different groups, because they're probably likely to key in with them or connect with them first before anybody else. So if you've got relationships with key community leaders, I think that would be a good opportunity so that they can relay that information or figuring out how we do that. I was also interested too in the councils that have already done these welcoming plans and what examples you can share that they have done to in terms of council's core business and all the things to do with us. What have they done to help people feel more welcomed in their cities?
Through the chair, thank you for your feedback, and those are well noted. Yes, we have spent quite a bit of time in phase one just to build that relationship, because it does take time to build that trust with the communities, especially with communities that are coming from a background where officials are not really that trusted. So yes, we definitely acknowledge that, and there's still work in progress in building that relationship, because it is an ongoing thing. Making sure that we always show our face in the events, making sure that we all always have an opportunity to present and to participate at the events where they organise, to show our support. Just to answer your question, sorry, what's your question again? Of it to do?
I'm looking for
Examples.
answers to these questions through what's already been done through the other councils.
Yep. So the councils that I have shared with you, for example, Queenstown Lakes District Council, they have issued a business awards where they would host award ceremony to give to businesses that acknowledge and work very closely and support the migrant and refugee background businesses. So that's one of the examples. And another example, again, you have mentioned is by celebrating culture and identity. So that is a very commonly seen amongst all the councils that are participating in this program.
What does that look like? What's examples of that?
For example, Rotorua District Council, Rotorua Lakes District Council, they have community-led events where they just invite their communities to celebrate together during one of the significant days, for example, World Refugee Day. And that, again, is celebrated differently at different level, different involvement from council. We have also done that about a year ago, where we supported the Changemakers Settlement Forum, which is an NGO in supporting and celebrating the World Refugee Day in Arena.
Sorry, through the me also, CC's done a number of events around Chinese New Year. We've got Diwali and those kinds of things on the calendar as well.
There was that Matariki event too at the arena. Was
Yes,
that the one you're
last
talking
year
about?
that was also a good example of showing our support by offering the space to Porirua Multicultural Council, who organised and led the event where all the communities are invited, in particularly the migrant and refugee community, where we had an opportunity to celebrate together and having the representation from Aotearoa as well. So that was a great event with multiple different performances from different diverse background. Yes.
Councillor Trillin?
Cheers, thank you. Not a whole lot to add from what's already been said, and this is really fantastic. Thank you very much. The one area that I did want to make an observation around, and I guess put to you in terms of challenges and barriers, I think we are a city that is filled with very welcoming and engaging individual villages and communities. But I think there's probably a case to be made that while we're a demographically diverse city, we're also a demographically divided city in terms of where our different communities are. And it occurs to me that potentially that might be a barrier in terms of newcomers to our community feeling welcomed and part of the full community, whether you're in the north or the south or the east or the west or wherever. And so I wonder if you have any comment or any recommendations around things that we could be doing to potentially break down those barriers a little bit more and connect those communities up a little bit more, so it's the full welcoming broad community of Porirua.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. That's that really good question. I think that's why it's important when we're doing our engagement and consultation with both internal and external, especially external stakeholders, we put it out and seeking feedback and identify how we can address that and overcome that barrier. Because at the moment, through the events that we do run, we using the central location to bring everybody together, rather than doing at specific locations. But we also understand one of the barriers is around transport.
Through the chair, I'd like to add to that, please. Thank you. If we look at our citizenship ceremonies as an example, Ngāti Toa haven't expressed a desire to potentially have one on marae from time to time to help our new migrants and our former refugees understand our treaty partnership with Ngāti Toa and to understand the concept of Te Ao Māori and to start to build a relationship from day one with Mana Whenua. So that would be one example where we can start to integrate our communities together. I was at the Pacific Night Market on Friday evening at Cook Islands Community Hall. The number of stallholders there has grown to 55, and the representation from across the community now is really expansive. And the representation of our community who are attending the night market as well is across our broader community, of which our new migrants and former refugees are enjoying that experience. There are other opportunities as well, but note taken. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Can I just say very quickly, I would wholeheartedly endorse that sort of approach that Ngāti Toa have floated. That sounds like a fantastic idea, and thank you for that answer.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cece. From me, we are culturally diverse. You can see it just walking around the community. And we are having more festivals together and mixing, as you said, Chinese New Year, working closer with the Multicultural Council, Diwali, all the things that we do our flag raisings for Pacific, and it's about just making sure we do all communities. And I know that budget is tight, and sometimes, but we're welcoming for everybody, and that's what makes Porirua a great place, because we are so culturally diverse. And the night market was a classic example. The number of stalls from different people up there on Friday night was just unbelievable. So keep doing what you're doing. I think it is going well, and that will be the council's going forward. How do we continue this program and budget? I'm guessing in our long-term plan. Or something. I know we're going to continue on as is, but, we have to look long-term as well. So thank you. Anyone else out there? Councillor Waddle.
Yeah, look, it's awesome, the work that's being done, and it's great that we are, not only focusing on our bigger, I guess, migrant communities, but also our smaller ones, and getting the breadth of the city. We are incredibly diverse, as everyone has highlighted, but we also need to maintain that this sort of work is genuine. We're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, and I think, and what we are doing is genuine. I just wanted to comment just about the challenges and barriers. I think one that sort of sticks out to me that I've noticed is sort of, I guess, an understanding and education of around why New Zealand and Porirua as a whole does things the way they are done, why we have a council, what the council does. It's very westernised, as Jeff has highlighted, but it's also a core part of how our country runs, our city runs. So I think breaking down those barriers of understanding why we have rates increases, why we have to pay these bills to the council to get the facilities and the services we need, I think is a real key issue as well. But I think the work that is being done and will continue to be done is going to be fantastic, and going to continue to invite people from all around the world to come and live in Porirua. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Through the chair, could I just
Yes,
respond
you
to
can.
the comment from the councillor? Thank you. Again, noted. I think it's important here to reference the crossover to Mangaroa and Ola Kamatanga strategies and the focus areas of each, and also the recent work on the Tamariki and Rangatahi strategy, in particular around civics, machinery of government, and the support of our younger population to be a part of council meetings, to understand planning processes, to make submissions, as we saw last week from Tairangi School. These strategies overlap in that regard, where each will benefit from each other's work.
Thank you very much. Thank you both.
Thank you. Can I please just add
You may.
one thing? Thank you. Earlier when we mentioned about the events and to celebrate all the cultures, and that's definitely something that we are working towards too. An example of that is the most recent Lunar New Year celebration. We don't call that Chinese New Year, because Lunar New Year celebration is actually recognized and celebrated by multiple cultures, not just Chinese, in mainland China. That's one of the examples, and we have invited communities, not only just the communities that do celebrate Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, but also communities that who are very keen supporting these significant events, such as Pacific community. So it's just really, it's a good way to start, and also another great example to show that we do have communities, and it's acknowledged by the wider community, the significance of celebrating cultures and identities together as a whole.
Thank you, because that Lunar New Year celebration went really well at Kaitahi, and the turnout was really good.
Thank you.
So this is our next steps. Are you wanting anything else?
It's just a really a quick rundown in terms of the next steps. So we will be drafting the welcoming plan, including priority areas for action this year, and using the engagement and consultation process, both internally and externally, to determine the agreed action. And having the plan adopted by late July, that's to be determined, and implement and monitor from August 2025 onwards. And this is just a picture from the Kaitahi Lunar New Year celebration. Yeah, it's colourful, and it's beautiful, and it's participation and enjoy from everyone.
Thank you, Cece.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Pete. Okay, we're moving to item 1.2, the Porirua Wastewater Treatment Plant Solids Handling. And who do we have today? Ash Crawford and Steve Hutchinson from Wellington Water, and Olivia. So would you like, Michael, do they want questions at the end or going through?
Questions at the end, I
End.
reckon.
Over to you, Mike.
Thank you. I'll just lower the tone a little bit now. Look, sanitation is one of the most important things we do in local government. It's also one of the most expensive. So this is to do with how we deal with sludge at our wastewater treatment plant. But I just want to take a moment to explain where this fits in the spectrum of sludge, because it's not all that simple. So, yeah, I'll come to that. So our wastewater treatment plant. Actually, can you go and get some hand sanitizer, please? So our wastewater treatment plant, we have upgraded it over the years, right? So the various components have been upgraded over the years. So it's actually not in bad nick compared to some of the other ones in Wellington, and certainly compared to many of them in New Zealand. It's actually not so bad. I'm not saying that's a great benchmark, because we're not doing particularly well as a country, but ours is not as bad as, say, Hutt's and Wellington's infrastructure. But we are ready for the next upgrade, and this is a $28 million piece of capex that we're talking about here. So we thought it was about time that we lifted the lid on it a wee bit and gave you a bit more visibility over this big project and what the costs and benefits are expected to be. But before we do that, I just want to be clear about sludge, right? So wet sludge and dry sludge, big difference. So you would have heard Wellington City Council talking a lot about drying sludge. So what they're trying to do is to turn their sludge. You know what sludge is, right? Some people call it biosolids, but basically everything that you flush, the water gets taken out and what's left behind is called sludge. Wellington City Council is in the process of, I can pass these around, these are inert, is in the process of turning its sludge into something like that. Now these are pellets, they can go in the landfill, they've been used for soil conditioner is the word that people use. But basically if you turn your sludge into something like that, it gives you a lot more flexibility over about what you do with it. Key thing with getting sludge to that point means that you don't necessarily need to stick it into the landfill, right? So that's what Wellington City Council is doing now. It's costing them $400 million. Hutt City Council's dryer that does that, you might have seen, is busted. So they're having to fix that in a screaming hurry. Cost of about just under $100 million, I think they're having to spend on that. Now, we're not doing that. We would love to do that at some point in the future, but what we're talking about today is our wet sludge. So the way we process sludge at the wastewater treatment plant has caused us a few issues, as you know. So the team from Wellington Water, Usley and Steve, are going to kind of talk to us a bit about the project, what we hope to see out of it, and some of the ins and outs. Now, a couple of things. One is all the people who come and talk about infrastructure, they have strict instructions to minimise the number of words on the screen and to maximise use of pictures and graphs. Now, that's intentional because this is a highly technical area and it's easy to kind of dive down into rabbit holes. We're happy to do that from time to time, but I really want to keep us focused on the big stuff that's going on in here. By and large, you've seen the presentation. By and large, the team has done that, with one exception I grumble about. I take full responsibility. I would like to say one of the best ways of bringing this stuff to life. What is that? Our sludge. Yeah. Okay. So this is our stuff, right? So it's heavier, it's wetter, and it's harder to handle than the stuff that you've got in the other one.
Sorry, Mike, where did you say that sludge goes? It doesn't go to the landfill, does it? They do it? So Hutt City has been going into the landfill, but you can use it as a soil conditioner. So it's like a compost, but there are issues with that as well. But the point is, that's about 95% dry solids. Our stuff's about 92%. Our stuff's about 20% dry solids. So it's mostly water in that second one. So you're having to truck water around the country. With that stuff, you're trucking solids. So one of the best ways to bring this stuff to life is to actually site visit. So we're very keen, once we've got something to show you, to actually take you up to the site so you can have a good look for yourselves. But with that, I'll pass over to the team who are going to talk you through some of the ins and outs of what we're up to with this $28 million project. Thanks, Steve. Usley.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Morena Koto, and thanks for the introduction, Mike. My name is Ashley Crawford, and project director at Wellington Water. Today we're going to be talking about the solar tunnel upgrade project at the Porirua wastewater treatment plant. And agenda here. So we're going to be talking about the value for money as an initial. And we're going to be giving a background about the project in itself. So as you can see in here, there's an overview of the plant in itself. So the area that we will be focusing on is at the background within the building in itself. And you can see the centrifuges over there. And yeah. And this is a bit more a focused area. So within the solar tunnel upgrade project, so we got waste activated sludge thickeners. So there are 2, and then we got a couple of centrifuges, and we have got polymer makeup. So the one on the and those centrifuges are within the building in itself. So, and also we're going to be talking about the project objectives and what we've done, the progress to date, and we're going to be talking about the schedule and the forecast and the risk, and we'll take the questions at the end. Value for money. So I believe our CE, Board of Chair, and the Chief Operating Officer have been visiting each council and giving briefing around the value for money. So for this specific project, the delivery of this project it is through a competitive open market, and that's always been the approach as far as the major projects are concerned. We have received a high interest from the market. We've completed a market sounding back in January, so there's a good interest, and based on recent experience that we have been through, we are confident that the tender price will be within the budget. Within the cost estimate, I should say. So background of how this project came about. So as you may know, the plant has several incidents of causing discoloration at the Rikutane point. That is the discharge point. That's the treated effluent discharge point at the Rikutane point next to the outfall. So that's the discoloration picture that was taken by public member, and that was back in September 2021. You can see a bit of discoloration in there. And also what we have as part of what's causing that is there are capacity constraints within the solids handling train, and what this do is build up of sludge in the clarifiers, and when there's a high flow coming into the plant during the rainy events. In some cases, it can cause sludge carryover, and that may carry on until this additional capacity is installed. There were few events back in 2024, couple in March and couple in April, and as a result, Greater Wellington Regional Council issued a abatement notice, cease abatement notice. So the project objectives, it's upgrading the solid stream to bottleneck the system. So the main bottleneck is the thickeners as well as the centrifuges. So there are 2 centrifuges, and those centrifuges are on and off. They're not really operated on a 24/7 basis. Also, to accommodate the projected population growth through 2048 design horizon. Also, consideration of integrating the upgraded soil upgrade system with a sludge or bio-solid dry in the future. And also, it must integrate with the Spicer landfill operational requirement for current and future resource consent. Progress to date. So this project, when it was first started in July 2022, it started with, that's why we called it original soil and upgrade project, and then later on there has been a pivot, and I'll come to that. So what we've done, we kind of like separated those two and progress to date until, well, from July 2022 to November 24 last year. So we have completed quite lots of work streams. So we looked at sludge management options and what that sludge management options may look like. So what that means is the, let's say, a dry on site or somewhere else. Look at stream upgrade options. So again, there's a resource consent condition to reduce the ammonia nitrogen. Equipment selection, that's mainly thickener and centrifuges. And also we looked at in detail Spicer landfills acceptance capacity of the sludge cake now and into future. We also completed concept design for the original scope, and that included value engineering as well. And we completed geotechnical investigation, so that included boreholing from 10 meters to 4 to 5 meters deep, and analyzing the soils. We also looked at an option to incorporate, let's say, dewatered sludge from Porirua wastewater treatment plant to Seaview, because Seaview Dry is being renewed at the moment, and that option has been discounted last year. We also completed level 3 cost estimates. So there are different levels of cost estimates. So that level 3 cost estimate was based on the concept design, and that came to be about 39 million, and which was significantly higher than the approved projects approved budget. I think there's a sorry. Okay. Also, the forecasted program extended by about a couple of years, so from 2026 to 2028. And also, as I mentioned earlier on, we had a cease abatement notice issued in June 2024. So what all these three factors us to actually rethink what we need to do. So hence, if I, sorry?
Is that not working?
Okay. Okay. So what we've done what we've done it started sometimes in July last year. We looked at we initiated investigation and that resulted alternative solution. So this picture here, it shows what the upgrades might have been looked like. So you can see on the right-hand side, there's a fourth clarifier that's in the future. We allocated some space, and also the original sort and upgrade project that entailed a building as totally separate facility, and that facility is next to the fourth clarifier there. And this is the concept design that was for the original salt and upgrade project. What I want to do is just to give you guys a feel what we've done so far. Really, yeah. Moving on to alternative salt and upgrade projects. So as I said, there were 3 factors. Estimated cost estimate was higher. The implementation or completion date extended by about a couple of years, and also we got this cease abatement notice, meaning that we had to address the issue urgently. In November last year and December, we've gone through a governance process and change the direction of the project into this alternative salt and upgrade project. So we went through the government approval process, and that's approved back in December last year. This alternatives solution, it entails, well, we've taken a stage approach. And there are 3 stages. Currently, stage 1 is underway. And the reason we went for stage approach is in the order of urgency, and also making sure that those non-compliance is actually addressed in a really timely manner. That's been our focus. And also fitting within the approved budget. So this is just a very high level. So what you see there is that what the stage 1 entails installation of a 95 cubic meter of the water sludge cake silo. The conveyance system from the existing centrifuges into the silo, and then from the silo into 2 self-leveling bins. So that's stage 1. So that's stage 1 here. This is very schematic drawing. It's not really detailed. So at the moment, stage 1. So we've completed market sound on for stage 1, and we've got a really good interest from the market. Sorry. And we also completed a level 3 cost estimate, and it is within the approved budget. That entails stage 1 and stage 2. And we have gone through the approval, procurement, approval of the procurement and delivery model. So delivery model that we have market sounded and gone for is the design and build. And And since then, tender documents and technical specifications all complete, and now tender is out to the market, and closing date for the tender is 20th of this month. And we're hoping to award the contract sometimes early August. Schedule at the moment, it does for stage 1. We're hoping to complete it by November 2026, and that's the precondition that we put in the tender documents. For stage 2 and 3, and that's very high level, and it's to be confirmed. And that's the process that we will be going through. So we'll be taking it to our internal approval process in terms of procurement, and then go out to market. Centrifuges, specifically centrifuges, they are long lead items, about 10 months and plus. And then after that, installation and complete. We're hoping to finish it by mid-27-28 financial year.
We perhaps have some questions, Ash, because I've got a few of them waiting.
Okay.
Is that all right? So I've got Councillor Hayward, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Leggett.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. My questions are actually covered in a subsequent slide around risk. And I guess this this is important in that context. First of all, there is a risk that the continuation of what is effectively the status quo, it's been alluded to that the abatement notice that was issued by Greater Wellington still is an ongoing issue. And it's not listed here, but I think it needs to be stated, because this is, the status quo is unacceptable for my community. So is it possible to just make sure that we reference that point more clearly in terms of our risk assessment?
Well, the project is proceeding as quickly as it reasonably can. In terms of operational, trying to reduce that risk, the operational team are working as closely with the landfill as they can to get as much sludge out with the current equipment that's available. So we are cognizant of that risk and doing what we can to mitigate it.
Also, that's obviously associated with that.
Yeah, we have the team have monthly meetings with Greater Wellington to tell them update them on progress and the work that's going on.
Yeah, thank you. The next question was, and it kind of is alluded to what the point you're saying about moving as is reasonable. Is there any way of explaining how the pace of this project is compared to other projects of this type? How quickly are we moving in this space?
Because of the abatement notice, cease abatement notice, we have selected design and build, and design and build is it's a model that it allows you to move faster. So that's why we went with that delivery model. So that's the quickest we can do, and we have put a precondition in the tender document that it needs to be completed by November 2026.
Okay, that's answered one of my other questions. So just one last question. And this was somewhat, I think, discussed at the joint committee meeting, but just an expectation for officers that the presentation materials from this session and perhaps a link to this particular workshop may be disclosed to all members of the committee who are not necessarily members of this council, but they should be having access to this information as part of their ongoing duties of oversight for the committee.
Happy to do that. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, mine references this slide, triggering an on-site dryer. So we ruled out the one with Seaview, using Seaview's one. The cost of that would be enormous, wouldn't it, to us?
There's a whole bunch of things, Councillor. One was has some real urgency and needs to move quickly. One of the big issues with the hut is they need to upgrade their electricity to get enough power to run the thing. They needed to throw quite a bit of money at that up front. We simply not able to do that. That was the first thing. Then there's a whole bunch of stuff to think about, like how would you actually get your sludge from here to there in a way that was risk-free, because there was no appetite for any risk on this stuff. You can imagine rolling a tanker trailer on State Highway 59 is not something any of us wants to see. So when we started looking at some of the ins and outs and what the OPEX would be for that, we came to the conclusion that it wasn't really a practical option. We looked at the same thing with Wellington, by the way, but again, when you start looking at some of the risks, they're not risks we're prepared to take.
That doesn't answer the cost, though, that we'd be looking at if we had to have our own dryer.
No, it doesn't. We're still working through what the options might be when the time comes to have our own dryer. That's not in the LTP yet. This is still over the horizon yet. So, but Hutt Valley is currently upgrading theirs, or actually just renewing theirs for a cost of 100 mil. Wellington City Council's is 400 mil. So that gives you an idea of the order of cost.
Councillor Leggett?
Along the same lines, I guess it's moot because it does move to the new entity. But just out of interest, if circumstances were that we had to start a dryer project, could that run in parallel with this existing project, all the stages?
So we have allowed the space. So the way we put the silo in this in stage one, we kind of given a segue to dryer and enabling the silo as the roll feed silo into the dryer. So there is some thinking in that space, and I'm pretty sure you all have been to the site, and that site is very, very tight site, and the space is very, very prime. So anything that you want to put in there, you have to cut into the hill, and cutting into the hill is expensive. So, yeah.
But so you are taking that into account, and
the layout is being put with that land adjacent in mind for expansion.
Councillor Philo?
What are the improvements or impact that you would expect to see once stage one is completed?
So the benefit that we expect from stage one is to allow a 24/7 operation. So what that means is that it will actually reduce the level of sludge buildup in the clarifiers. So that will be benefit, and that will also minimize and potentially eliminate the sludge carryover into the outfall.
So when you say 24 hours, what does it do right now?
So the current arrangement is just batch. So it gets put into the skip bins that are underneath the centrifuges and then taken to the landfill. So we're constrained by that logistical operation of with the silo there, we can produce the sludge continuously, so more evenly, and then drop it into the bins to take to the landfill more efficiently.
Oh, okay. And apart from the 3 stages, what is the difference in terms of this approach versus what was originally planned in the sludge handling project?
In terms of objectives, it's mostly meets the objective, except from there will be some capacity issues with the thickeners around 2040, and also I guess there's a bit of compromise as well. Imagine the original idea was that building a facility which is away from the current operations. Now we are very close and we are replacing things within the operation. And while we're changing, let's say, current assets, we still have to operate the plant. So there are that risk, but in terms of impact, in terms of objectives, except from thickener capacity around 2040, except from that, everything else meets the objectives.
Thickening capacity. What do you mean by that?
So we're relying on the existing round tanks, the tanks that are there at the moment, and the stage 3 is to refurbish those because they're getting pretty old and tired. But we'll be running them harder, and with population growth, they'll reach a capacity 2035, maybe 2040, depending on growth. So at that stage, we'll need to do a further upgrade. So we're not able to do the whole. We're not doing the whole job. We're doing the most important bits.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the previous project, that wouldn't have been an issue. It would have had capacity for a lot longer. Okay.
Yes.
Because this will affect the ammonia concentration at the plant. No.
No, this project is not really. It's not linked to ammonia reduction, so that will be a separate upgrade. Sometimes in early 30s. That's the liquid stream of the wastewater treatment plant, and this is the solid stream of the wastewater treatment plant, and there will be an upgrade in the liquid stream of the treatment plant, sometimes early 2030s.
But when there are sludge carryovers, that affects the ammonia concentration, doesn't it? So won't this
No, it
indirectly?
doesn't. It's a separate issue. The ammonia concentration was all about the oxygen getting into the aeration tank, which we've managed to tune. But at some stage, we will we'll need to upgrade, need to put further oxygen aeration capacity into that aeration tank. It's quite separate.
Well, I thought that there was one of the issues there too was that the sludge was staying there and it wasn't able to be pulled out. So, isn't this related?
So this one is, so when we are able to operate 24/7, so meaning that we are wasting more sludge from the clarifiers, meaning that the sludge level in the clarifiers will be dropped down. Mm-hmm. Currently, they're higher, and also mixed liquid levels in the bioreactor basin is higher than what it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's to do with carryovers,
Yeah.
not ammonia, just to be clear.
Cool. So last question, just wanted to clarify with either of these projects, will they affect the amount of sludge that we need to transport to the landfill? Will that still stay the same?
There'd probably be a marginal increase because we're getting the sludge out more efficiently.
Yeah. So we'll be getting more to the landfill. Okay, cool, thank you.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, I just while we're speaking of this, I'm wondering what effect on this will the new storage tank have in mitigating some of the pressures on the system?
It's not really related.
It's not?
That's really about stopping the overflows into the harbour. So again, we'll get marginally more, up to 7 million litres more to the plant in a storm event, but it's the liquid, it's not so much the solids.
No more questions? Are you at the end? Yeah, because I interrupted you, sorry. Yep. So any final questions then? Sorry. No? Thank you both for coming in. Thank you, Mike. It was excellent. Thank you. Okay, we will finish off with the karakia. When it comes up on the screen, we will all say it together. Thank you.